Right, there we go. My mic wasn't working for some reason. I'm not sure how long that's been. So, just in case, just in case nothing was actually said in the last 15 minutes, I'm just going to give a very, very quick run through of what I just explained. So, currently, I've made some changes to some functions to enable some slight variants on existing block types to be implemented in the game. So the most noticeable change in regards to the code is, rather than limiting our corner ranges to -1 and 0, we now have expanded that range to -1, 0 and 1. And then we'll pass that through this function where a shape is picked from that list. We'll expand it so that it's not only got more shapes to access, but also so that if basically a block isn't found, then we will trim off those top additional ones like we were originally doing and research using this function. So it's kind of like we're doing it twice, but we're getting best of both worlds. Like if we can't find something that extends vertically on one side, we might be able to instead just smooth it out by lowering it on the other. Right, so now that that is out of the way again, I was just going to revert over the shapes that I was using up here because I wanted to use a more visually interesting shape now that I've tested all of this functionality, just so that I can better test it for the types of shapes that I'm implementing. So we want an ellipsoid of some kind. I'm just going to use this one since it's probably the easiest to work with. I can never remember what way around the values go, so let me check. So we've got, okay, these are center positions and then X, Y, Z diameter. So we want to change the size of it. I'd say we scale that up by twice as much as a reasonable size. So scale it up in all directions. Make sure that we've got a big enough shape to use. Recompile the code. This may lag it out, by the way, it normally does when I use larger shapes. There we go, let's put down my coffee. Got to stay awake when doing programming. Not that I recommend copious amounts of caffeine, but right, let's play the code. This will probably take a little bit longer than it normally does. Oh, and something interesting that I should point out before continuing with this. An interesting side effect of running that code twice is the rotations are slightly wrong for some of the shapes, and that's a bug that I need to look at and try and fix. So, going to the top, we're looking fine. This is the shape that I'd expect. The bottom, again, needs fixing, but this here is one of the issues that this new block set should fix, or this new tile set should fix. So where essentially you're lowering one corner, because we've got a height of 0, 0, 0, -1, but we're not accounting for this +1 on this side. So it's quite important that where we can accommodate blocks such as this, and I think this is actually the only block that does this, but where there are cases like this, we want to be able to essentially have the tile go from down here to up here. And while still technically it will be this voxel, it's not like encroaching on the top space as such. It's still nice to have that additional flexibility. Whether or not it will stay in the final code base, like we might run into issues with like collisions, for example, is not clear yet, but at least we're building it in for the future in case we do decide it looks good enough to keep in, and I would like to keep it in, because from a designer point of view, it's always nice when you get a little bit more flexibility and you can iron out some of these kind of programmer edge cases where it's not ideal from a tech standpoint, but is nice for the end user. Like, yeah, it takes a bit of extra work, a bit of extra configuration on the programming side, but ultimately it benefits the game, and that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So I will go through the code currently, and I just want to quickly see if I can fix this before moving on to anything else. I think all that's happening is for some blocks it's for whatever reason it's rotating them the wrong way. It's not all blocks, as you can see, it's only like ones on these sides, which I find kind of odd. But we'll have a look, we'll investigate it, see if there's anything obvious that stands out. So one thing I did to try and combat it, which didn't seem to work, was down here, where we originally had the block that if it was on the bottom, it rotated it +4. I took it out and made sure that it was placed, let me find it. I placed it in my test function, here we go, one of the functions that I'm testing these changes on. So that it's essentially only happening once, which is exactly what we need basically. But I think this has kind of caused some issues. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. It's hard to visualize all of the stuff that's going on currently, but I'll work through it step by step and see if I can spot anything obvious. One of the things that I did before when looking at these rotations is I edited this function here where it's update block rotation. So this happens when a block is first spawned into the scene, and it basically should just should change the orientation of the block. It's that simple. So what I'm going to do is mess around with a few of these values, see which ones affect what, and see if I can correct some of the issues that we're having. So I think my first step is just going to be to change those around, because it seems to be with only opposing blocks, like it's only 2 of the rotations that are wrong. So I'm hoping doing this will correct it, or at least some combination of it. I might have just messed up the rotations of the other blocks, we'll see. Yeah, it looks like I can just see it there. It looks like I've made something worse, or I've just not fixed it at all. So wait for it to load. Oh, actually, I don't know if I compiled it. Let's try again. Sometimes I forget. I don't know if I did that time, but doesn't hurt to be careful, I suppose. Hi Raz, how's it going? Right, so let's have a look at these changes. So obviously I've just I've just messed it all up again. Looks like I'm rotating stuff in the wrong direction again. How goes the terrain gen? Yeah, so I messed up the bottom side. That's how it goes. I will fix that quick. Oh, in fact, I actually know what the problem is. So Raz, since you weren't here a second ago, I'm just implementing some additional block types. But to do that, it means changing some of the rotational code. So the function that I was calling before, this one, I'm now calling this twice, and on the second pass it's taking all of the high-end values in this array and it's like capping them at 0. So it takes care of those weird corner blocks that I didn't have but wanted. But I know what's happening now. So if it's on the bottom, we're essentially we're reversing the rotation of these blocks. But because we're running through it twice, it's doing a double reverse, and it's actually breaking a fix that I did originally, which was this code. This was a fix to another rotational problem, but because it's happening inside of this function and it's getting called twice, we're getting issues. So what I will do, I know it's not an ideal solution and I'll probably clean this up off of camera, but for now I will place that code outside of the function call so that it only happens once. So here I believe would be the best place to put it. So these need changing to the right variables that are local to this function. But essentially, we're doing the same thing. I know. Yeah, the problem with doing stuff like this is because it's not necessarily all mathematical, it's all like relative to each other. You have to have so many unique cases and statements and assignments, and it's not the most elegant way of programming. I'm not keen on it, to be honest. I wish that I could do something a bit cleaner. I'm hoping that actually through this live stream and through YouTube somebody can suggest something a bit nicer, but this is what I've got so far. Anyway, so let's test that change. I still need to update the other functions that use the same functionality. I know I should break it out into its own function at this point, but I'm just going to wait until I've actually got it working before I do that. So if we press play. This might help. Right, that link I will... I can't really open stuff on stream, that's the issue. So
hey, what's up? I'm
Oh, that's a bit loud. Right, I will watch that video when I've got time. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for linking something. I think I've seen a video like this before actually, but I can't remember. That seems to have fixed it though. Yeah, that's removed the bug that I just introduced today, which is great. Out of curiosity, Raz, as well, is this like a good time to start streaming for you, like 4 o'clock? Just because originally I was doing it at 2, but I think I want to do it a bit later from now on. You'll have to let me know if this is like a good time to start, or you'd rather it be like an hour earlier. Well, that's the thing, like I'm trying to target people in as many time zones as possible, not so that I can get like, you know, huge fan base or anything like that, but just so that more people can benefit from this if it's helpful to some. Right, anyway, so fix that problem, and now we can start doing some fun stuff, which I originally wanted to start doing earlier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add to this area here. (8 to 4:30), and what time is it there now? Because it's 4:20 here. 10:20. Okay. Fair enough. Well, let's have a look. So yeah, I'm wanting to update these if statements so that the case list is larger, and I also want to introduce more shapes into the model list that we have. So there's 2 places that I'll be editing primarily. There's here, and there's another function near the top which is responsible for spawning in the different model types. So I guess it's probably, rather than starting here actually, I guess I'm going to start in the model area. so that I can see if my existing code still works and if I have to make any adjustments. So these file paths will obviously need to change. You can see I've got a new block list, and there are some slight issues with implementing this just now, but I will get onto that in a bit. So right, so we want the flat one. That's our starting point here. We need to copy the reference for that. Put that there. And I will just test that quick just to make sure it works. So the problem that I'm referring to in regards to this stuff is not only do I not know if the scale is right for this, but also the side panels are not implemented as part of the block. They're separate, and that's like a deliberate optimization strategy that we've decided to use, where essentially we're going to do everything separate from each other, so that we how do I best explain it? Yeah, so that we basically have to render less on the screen at any given time, but then it means we have to do a few more dynamic allocations in the code to say, look, this needs to be visible at any given time. These things, for example, might be underground, or they might be in a house, or it might be like in this case here, where this block is inside of another group of blocks and we don't need to render all of these planes. It looks a bit weird at the moment because you can see straight through it, but this is a good illustration of the issue that we were having before, essentially. Because as you can see, we're rendering in all of these planes and all of these blocks when only the outer ones are visible. So part of the transition over to this new block system is to only render what's necessary. And I will need a few additional assets before this will look as it should. But for the most part, that seems correct. Even though it does look a bit odd. I think the only difference is the origin might be in the wrong place. But I can just double check that. Yeah, so the origin probably shouldn't be in line. I think the origin should just be below. Because we're still treating this plane as if it's attached to a block, so the origin for this needs to be at halfway down. So I will deal with that in a bit. Raz, the video I posted basically makes a static use a dictionary with condition type as the key. To do as the value. Okay, that might be interesting. I'll have a look at that at some point. I've kind of deliberately wanted to avoid more complex stuff on the stream, just because I know it's not the most fun looking at the most cut and dry code practices, but it's definitely something that I will look at off of stream, because I try to program on my off days. So I'll probably have a look at that on, well, possibly tomorrow morning actually, if I get time. It depends on what other work I'm doing. Right, so let me just double check the origin of a few other blocks as well. So that one's not correct. And I'll compare it against this one, see if the scale's the right size. Right, so yeah, scaling's right, just origin offset is slightly wrong. I don't know if I can change that. I might be able to. Let me have a look on the side quick. Wouldn't it be better to use an offset value in the code? So I could do, but the issue with that would be I then have to do an offset for every shape. Like say in this case where he's done the offset over here, like this could be an arbitrary amount. I have no idea what this number is offset-wise. Whereas if every export is the same, the code base can treat every block in the same way, and it doesn't have to do any additional computation. It's essentially just offloading some of the processing that would have to be done at runtime into the artist's workflow, which may seem like I'm putting a bit more work on Josh's plate, the guy I'm working with, but it's kind of like necessary. Like in games development, you get every speed up you can get, and you don't want to be doing like manual things like that if you can help it, basically. So yeah, I'm just trying to think of what the best thing to do is now. So I thought these were correct, but obviously, like this one I don't even think exists. Oh no, it does, it's just over here. Again, I will get him to revisit these and I'll see if he can fix them at all. If not, that's not a problem. Yeah, I could use that system, but I think in UE4 it's a bit more complicated. It's not as drag and drop, and I'm not familiar with how to do it easily, to be honest, so it could take me forever lining up all the origins properly. What I will do instead is I will do the optimization thing that I was originally going to do for checking world boundaries and making sure that the code that we're using is not overextending into, well, outside of array bounds. So if let me turn down the music just a tad. Oh, I think it's on the minimum. Right. If I go to, where are we now? This function here. So this one is kind of awkward because I'm dealing with so many edge cases, but what I figure I can do is I figure I can do a bunch of not cases, but a bunch of ternary operators on these variables, pre-calculate them beforehand, and then plug the variable into here. So z+1, for example, can be checked to see if that falls out of scope. If it does, it will just be z, and we'll just check that position instead. So it's maybe not the ideal solution, but it will work. And to answer whether or not creating geometry in code would be easier, quicker, it would be if I wasn't working with the designer. So if it was just my stuff and I thought that, like, essentially if we weren't using 3D models, I would do it that way. But because the artist wants to have a bit more control over the shapes that we use, he's requested essentially that we do it this way, so that he can build a model, design it, make it look nice, maybe apply normal maps, that kind of thing, and then I can import it. I know it's probably cleaner to do it all in code, but it takes away some control that we kind of want from the design side. Because, for example, we might want to build a set of stairs that follow the ramp shape, and to do that we'd have to manipulate vertices in a way that wouldn't fit with the architecture of the code. Yeah, I know we can still apply like textures and normal maps and all of the kind of like flat plane stuff, but like I'm talking about more complex shapes here. So things like I say, like stairs, for example, they're a good example where we'll still be using the ramp block, but like in terms of code, it'll still be the ramp block, but it will have an entirely different look to it. Same with things like roofing tiles and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's two potential like avenues of doing it. That way would be better for some projects, like, I'm not going to lie. I wish I could kind of do it to some extent, but kind of bound by the design of the project. So yeah. Anyway, so let's have a look at this. So we've got, I think, how many variable types? I think we'll need 6. We'll need a positive and negative for every axis. Because if it's neutral, then we know it's inside of the array bounds anyway. Because the block that we're checking is inside of the array bounds. So if I do call it like x plus or something. And what would it be? So if we had no, sorry, not an if statement. What am I doing? If the x plus 1 is equal to, well, greater than or equal to, oh no, I guess it's just greater than max, oh, what have I called it now? Yeah, world width. It's greater than world width. Then we want to return just x. And if not, we want to return x plus 1. There's a lot of places in the code where I've done similar stuff to this, where it's basically just checking certain parameters are okay, and then like saying, yeah, this is fine, use this. If not, here's a fallback. I don't like repeating it so much. I think there's probably a way I could clean that up, and I'll think about it again going away on my own and programming. But if we now do x minus, same thing, but in the negative direction. This time we want to see if it's less than 0. So basically we're saying if it's to the left of the world volume, just return the current position. We don't need to return it outside of the bound. And then this whole thing will get copied each time for each axis, obviously editing each time the parameters that we're using. Yeah, just bear with me. So I think that's all done now. Let me just double check that. So it's equal to, so yeah, if it's outside of the bounds, it's equal to just x. If not, we're okay with it, we add 1. If x minus 1 is outside of the bounds again, we leave it as default. If not, it's okay. So yeah, that seems fine. I think I've got all the right parameter names now. And now it's just a process of essentially going through each one of these conditions and replacing the definitions that we've already got here. And actually this has an unintended benefit of optimizing the code slightly if it isn't already done by the compiler. Sometimes the compiler will spot stuff like this and do it for you, but because we are pre-processing our additions and minusing, we're only doing it once rather than doing it every single time. Probably a minor difference. I don't even know if overall it will give a performance benefit, but we'll see. Well, I guess actually we won't see because it's not something that's easily measurable. But yeah, let's find every instance of plus. Yep, I think that's fine. Same with minus. I think, yeah, there's a few up the top here. I don't fully expect actually that I'll have caught all of the bugs with this code up front. I'm trying to catch as many as I can now, but I'm almost certain that there will be some crash causing things here and there that I will have to go back and find. And I'm sure that that will happen as well when I'm refactoring, because I don't intend to leave this code as is. I know that some of it isn't the most elegant in the world. Some of it's also probably easily break-upable into like various different functions and maybe some templated stuff. And if any of those watching like on Twitch or YouTube don't know, like templating is just being able to carry out the same function but on a variety of data types. So there may be some instances where that actually might be useful. You know, like Voxel data, for example, might be able to be templated in a generic way or something like that. I'm not sure yet. Or like some operations that I can carry out on voxels, for example. So again, for y minus, halfway there now. And I've just noticed I've missed a few down here. It's important that we get all of them, because obviously it'll crash even if one of them is incorrect. Simply because it doesn't matter what axis you're butting up against, you need safety features on all of them. Well, I say it's a safety feature, it's nothing fancy really. It's quite basic, to be honest. And then I don't think I've got any Z minuses actually. Oh, I missed a plus there. So I'll just do a quick scan through, but I think I'm pretty much there in terms of eradicating all of the issues that I may have had before. Right, so let's save that. Compile it again, just want to test it, see if it works. Oh, my coffee's gone cold. Not very nice. Alright, let's play it. So yeah, I think it's behaving the same way, and if I'm not mistaken, actually, that compile time is a lot faster than it was before. Or rather, the loading time. So I think maybe the just having this single plane in here has actually sped things up a lot, which is surprising. So if I run that again, see, that was almost instantaneous, whereas before it seemed to chug a little bit. Loading in. So I'll revert it back to the old one again so we can see the difference. If I go back up to... where is it? Up here. Yeah, Raz, I'm a coffee drinker. Helps me get through the day. I'm not proud of that, but it does help. occasionally. Do you drink a lot of coffee, Raz, or not really? That's true, yeah. I know that Americans like their coffee. It's becoming actually, I'd say, more popular over here now. Yeah, you can see that this thing's chugging like a lot. Like, it takes forever to load this in. I don't know if it's a lighting thing or not, but it seems to take forever to load these cubes in. So that performance gain in and of itself is huge. There are a few additional things, of course, that we need to do. We need to render in corners. So these corner pieces will need to be taken care of. These edge pieces will need to be taken care of. Even the bottom of the block will be. But we will be able to determine whether or not to spawn any of those in based on certain conditions. So where to go with this next? I will need to get block fixes. It always seems like a bit of an issue actually when I go to do a live stream where like I'm waiting on an asset. So let me think. We've got most of the features in now I wanted, with the exception of the face optimization stuff. That still needs doing, and the render culling. The only other feature that is left, I think, is loading and saving, so I could look at maybe doing that. So let's think about it. I've done some loading and saving before in C++, and it was using the... Oh, I can't remember what it was called now. It was the... Pretty sure it was part of the IO, just like input-output library. The like streaming library, whatever that's called. And so if I revisit that, I'll bring it up on one side. But actually, one consideration to make is UE4 might have its own implementation of loading and saving, or it might protect loading and saving to some extent. I guess I'll just use the existing implementation that I've used before. If it doesn't work, I will do something else, but it's always worth trying. One of the big parts of this project anyway is to be able to edit the design of the game, so it doesn't really make sense to close everything off in like a walled garden. Maybe if multiplayer starts getting involved, then we'll want to change how like loading and saving works, but even then local save shouldn't be an issue, so I don't need to worry about any safety features, I don't think. And I don't mean like code safety, I mean user safety in that sense. So if I use write to file, if I Google write to file C++, I have done it before, I just need to remind myself of what the library is and also what function to use. Right, so if I copy these two libraries in, go up to my definitions here, got the input-output stream library, and fstream. I think. Oh, I think that's file stream. Yeah. So IOStream just allows me to manipulate like data essentially, and the fstream gives me some file-specific operations where I can basically put this data into it essentially. I think that's how it works. I'm not entirely certain, so don't take my word for it. I'd look it up yourself if you're interested. So first of all, we want to make some new functions, I suppose. I will put them where makes the most sense. I guess, well, they have to be private. They're quite big, so I'll put them at the bottom down here. Call it save world state. And I'll leave it like that for now. There may be some parameters I need to pass in at a later date, but I can't think of any off the top of my head, since it should just be a straight up file overwriting function. So we've created that definition now. Where has it gone? I've got it somewhere. Should be under block rotation. Here we go, save world state. So now that we've got access to these includes, we first of all want to create a file. I think the easiest way to do that is if, well, I'll just copy a bit of code off of this web page I'm using, but essentially we want to do this. So no. Maybe it doesn't have the same namespace stuff. That should work now. Yeah, so let's say... Oh, sorry, we need to create the file first, don't we? The variable, sorry. So let's say it's a Voxel save file. And it's of type OFstream. So get rid of that. Voxel save file. So we want to open it. So what this will do is, if there is something present by this name in the current directory, it will open it. If not, it will make a file, and then it will do its thing. So let's call, what should we call it? We'll call this Voxel data or data. I guess it depends on your pronunciation. There we go. And I need to find a way to read in a bunch of data through a for loop, I would have thought. So we'll copy one of the existing for loop setups that we've got. Whereabouts have we got a good one? I need the one with like max world sizes in it if I do have one somewhere. Might not do though. No. Actually, I guess I'll just use this one here. This one works. Here we go. Where am I? I'm losing myself already. Here we go. There we go. Nearly got lost there in my own code for a second. So we'll get rid of this because we don't need it. We also need an additional 4, so we want to go through every layer and not just one. Change those to Z. It is a shame that it's all in one giant thing. I promise you that once once this set of functions are done, like the saving and loading stuff, I am actually moving on to a different class. It's not all going to be in this one file, don't worry. Right, so I can't remember the exact thing that I need. I think it's append. So I want to be basically appending to this file. I don't actually want to just overwrite it every time. Yeah, don't worry, I will refactor everything. Problem with doing it on the live stream is I can't I don't feel I can like take the time to really think about it and refactor it while I'm going, so I'm gonna have to do that I think more actively in my spare time. But I will do it, don't worry. Not just one of those like software things where you say you're gonna refactor something and you never get around to it. Like I actually will try my best to refactor it. Because I will have to use this code base a lot and I don't want it to be a pain in the ass to use. So, let me think, what do I need to do? So, I want to... First of all, write the file, actually. I need to wipe it completely. So if it's, obviously if it's already got data in it, I can't just append to the end, can I? So, if I... Let me think. Oh, the 5,000 lines in a single file, that sounds horrendous. Yeah, just in the HUD control. that sounds mental to me. I mean, I know that this is a long class, but this is what? 900? And this is a relatively complex thing. I wouldn't have said a HUD controller could get that complicated. You'd at least delegate it to separate classes, surely. So... yeah, like at least my code, I guess, is not complicated or like unique. Like there is a lot of repetition in this file. Like even just the brushes themselves. I mean, they take up probably the majority of the space, and sure, some of it could be refactored, but realistically, there's not a lot of wiggle room, I don't think, with those. I don't know if I can set the flag of something on the fly. I might be able to, because my current thinking is what I do is first set the flag to I think there's a way to do it where it just overwrites it. I can't remember what flag it is though. In fact, I can just show you this resource. It's nothing like fancy. So I don't need that one, that was just setting the flag to the end position. This one's the one I want to use eventually, but not straight away. I don't think that's quite what I want either. I guess I just open it, I think. Yeah, I think I just open it by default and then read in. Yeah, I think I just pass data into it. So if I do it that way, I'll get rid of the append flag. And for now, I will say this is just a test. So Voxel save file. Let's just see if I can just overwrite it by simply doing something like hello repeatedly. This is probably going to look horrendous in the file, but oh well. Oh, in fact, no. I'll put some kind of number in there. I'll put like a. Oh, I don't know. I'll put. Can I do it? How do I do it again? It's int to. Oh. Or is there an int to string? There should be, surely. There might be in the UE4 library, actually. They sometimes have stuff like this. I'll just do int to char, why not? What's that thing you've got there? Save game. Thing that you've linked me, I think, is blueprints again. I really do wish the documentation was more useful. I know I keep on saying this, but sometimes it's not exactly the most obvious thing in the world. The same save game class sets up an object. Again, I'll bring this over. Yeah, so I'm on the C++ bit now. Use as a target for saving and loading. Creates a class in which we can use. The only issue with this is I don't know if we can dynamically create new data. Like, I'm not sure if you have to have a variable in mind. Like with this, it's saying score. What's it saying? It's saying like score and. Well, it said in the other one like score and something else anyway. But they're like fixed variables. They're something that you know that you're going to have. Whereas I have no idea if it will take like an array. Yeah, because this is like a struct in a sense, I think. It might work, but my arrays could be different sizes. To be fair, it might take an array in, I don't know. So this is simply just inheriting from something called usave. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. Yeah. I don't think I will use that. I mean, it's interesting to know that it exists, but because I want things to be edited in a text file anyway, I kind of want to use this implementation. There's probably a better way to do it, to be honest. I wish like libraries were a bit less awkward. I'm sure there is a library somewhere that does what I want it to do, but right now I know this is a way to do it, so, and it's one that I've done before. So if we put in, we do that int-char? No, doesn't seem to work. Oh well, let's just put in an amount. It doesn't really matter. There we go. I'm pretty sure we can actually just do that with numbers anyway. I think it's supported. Yeah, it seems to be. Yeah, I'll just put the number straight in then. So I'm kind of curious to see what position it's at. So I want to see if it's like writing the variables twice if I do it this way, instead of appending it to the file. Because what I'll do is first wipe it, so I'll open it, overwrite it using this if it's possible by just inputting something blank, and then I'll open it again with the append tag, or the append flag, sorry, and then actually write data to it. It's just a bit awkward to do all the formatting for this. Right, so that in theory should just repeatedly, I think, overwrite the same line actually. It might do that, and if it does then that's actually what we want, so let's test it, I suppose. We need to call it, well, let's actually close the file as well, that's important, before I do any testing. Don't think that needs any special parameters or anything, not that I'm aware of, so save that. I want to call this somewhere. I actually don't know where it will do the default save directory to. So I will have to find out. So if I run that, in theory it should make a file. There shouldn't be any problems with it. I'm sure there will be, but we'll see. Also notice something I need to change, but I won't edit it while it's compiling in case it throws a fit. So I've done that before and it didn't end well. I don't think I made that many changes. I don't know why it's taking so long. There we go. This may crash. I'm fully aware that this may crash. Well, it did something. Definitely lagging, so I assume that whatever it was has taken some time. Well, I don't even know why I'm looking at the shape, it's not important. I need to find out now whether it's saved that file to. And yeah, I'll open that link on the side and I'll definitely take a look. Raz. So, where would it save? I guess it would be in like the source binaries and all that jazz. Oh, this song's a bit intense. Let's skip it, there we go. It's supposed to be the chill section, not the dubstep section. I can't for the life of me remember where it used to save them. Possibly in binaries. What did I call it? It was Voxel data, so it'll probably be near the bottom somewhere if it is in this one. No, Windows does not like that in the slightest. RPG prototype, yeah. Saved. No, it won't be in here. I'm thinking it's to do with C++ compilation, because normally it'll put it with the code itself. Hang on, I'll look at the documentation quick. I just can't remember exactly where it goes. I guess I'd have to find out what the default directory is for Fstream and then redirect it to somewhere that makes a bit more sense, like a save folder for the project. So it says the current working directory, so I would assume that that was in source. Apparently not, though. In fact, I'll just search for it. Might take some time searching the entirety of Unreal, but if it finds it, then we're good. I don't know what it's with some of the music on the chill station. It's like not chill in the slightest. It's really intense. Here we go. It's in the engine binaries. That's interesting. Right, so that just added to the file repeatedly. That's kind of what I'd expect. So can't tell if it's run out of space or not, to be honest. Right, so where does it end? Here, right, so yeah, that seems like it's done what it should do. But interestingly enough, I reckon this'll not overwrite it. Let me just quickly have a look how to do file wiping. Okay, so apparently opening the file with the truncate option does actually clear it. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's just the description on this other page I was using was a bit vague, like I wasn't sure if it actually cleared everything or not. But let's try that. I think it was iOS, is it dot? I believe. No, there we go. Double colon. Trunk. And then from that, so that should wipe the file. And then we're going through every block position. And now, I guess we can actually do some overwriting and see if that works. If I run this actually, I just want to double check that it even writes anything at all with the truncate flag. So we may have to change the flag instead. Like open the file, truncate it, close it, reopen it with a different flag, which is the append flag, and work from there. I shouldn't have closed that folder. I've got it here, recent files. Let's relaunch that just in case it didn't actually write to it. Right, so this should have now overwritten all the old content, I would hope. So we'll see if there's any duplicates. So if we scroll down, so basically I'd expect to see 39 twice, but I'm not seeing any of that midway up the file, so I assume it's fine. I assume it's okay, to be honest. Nothing obvious stands out, really. At least it's actually writing to the file anyway. Which is what we want, I suppose, at the end of the day. So now on to actually saving some data. So the way that we want to write over this is, I guess we just need to store all of the relevant data separated by some kind of comma. We do a comma separated list for the data itself, and then separate out each individual voxel maybe with like a semicolon or something. That would probably make the most sense. So we don't actually need to have this text in here really, other than just to separate it out a bit. Why not JSON? I guess because I don't really need to. Like, to do it as a JSON format. Let me have a look at the format for that. Oh, I see what you mean. So I could do. I feel like I'd be saving more than I actually need to with that. Just because I want this to be quick, so I don't want to be iterating over thousands of characters. I know, like, as far as a loading and saving feature goes, it probably doesn't matter too much, but like JSON would be good if you were working on I think working on something that's working with a bit less data, or if you were doing like a program as opposed to a game. It's a good idea though. I might use it later if like customizability becomes an issue. There's nothing really that fancy, to be honest, with saving data to files. It's just however you want to format it. JSON would be a good idea if, say, I was doing something that needed to be universally recognizable, but since only this game is using this data, it's not really like a consideration of my requirements, I guess. So let's evaluate what data I actually need. So the most obvious stuff is shape, material, rotation, and I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. So yeah, exactly. Since I'm the only person that will be using it, and because we're reading and writing within the same object, essentially, like there's no special requirements for formatting. I'd probably do it if I was more concerned with people being able to read it maybe a little bit better. I probably should, in the long run, convert it over to that system, but just to get something working for now, I'm not too concerned. there's nothing really like fancy here, to be honest. Just simply saving all the variables separated by commas, and then when it gets to the end of a line, it'll insert semicolon. I'll format this a little bit nicer so that it actually... There we go. What else? So we've got the shape, got the material, got the rotation. I don't think I need anything else with that, so that's fine. So that should actually be fine as a save system. I think that's all the data that we need anyway. If I now go to my definitions again, rather than just saving, we want load. So I'll make a new function type for that. There we go, got it down here. Now we're essentially just doing the same process, but just reading from it. Like, I don't think there's anything special really. The only difficult part about this is knowing how to treat each character. But that's like a kind of simple matter of just iterating through a string, basically. So in fact, instead of separating it like this, I will separate it using the \n, which all this does is it like drops a line. So when I'm reading it in, I can read stuff on a per line basis. So with this stuff, if I copy this, and I say and actually, in fact, I'll do it for each data type. Like, I'll just drop a line for each data type. There's really no reason why I can't. I don't even think it takes up any more memory, because all we're doing is introducing a different character instead. No worries, man. Have fun eating chicken. So instead of doing this process where we're like reading it like this, we just want to actually say this equals, and then I think we just use the get line. I think there's something called get line. How is it used? So we need a string. Call that line. Why has that not been recognised? Maybe it's because it's the namespace not being recognised at all. Because that should be a recognized function, I think. Because I'm pretty sure it's in IOStream. So I can try manually declaring the namespace. That might help. That recognized. There's no member get line. It does, I think. Oh, maybe I need to include the string header. I'll try it now. There we go. Yeah, it's part of the string library. Duh. So we're getting the line from the Voxel save file, and we're assigning it to the line variable. Right, so it doesn't like that. Maybe because it has a flag set actually. Right, so I'm not sure why this isn't taking the right overload. I think either I'm using the wrong... Oh, it's because I'm using output stream. What I need to be using is input stream. Right, of course. Yeah, it only takes input stream type in to get line. So, because we're reading from it this time, we're opening it under this data type and we're saying we want to get the line of this, and then each variable is equal to the line that we get, essentially. We copy this multiple times. And then for each one we have that stuff and that. Copy this. So essentially each time we're just getting the line and making this equal to it, but we do need to convert it to the number. We're currently reading in a string and it doesn't recognize that. So, put that down there. There must be something to convert. Is there something to do with ints? There must be something. Let me have a look quick. I'll look it up on the side. I think it's the stoi function. I've used this before, I just forgot what the function name was. Because, like, to give you an overview of a project that I've worked on separately, we had to like make a mock-up. It's almost like a Steam library, but in like command line. It was a really weird assignment. It was quite fun, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of odd. And we were like reading in stuff like game information, like whether or not it had a certain rating or not, and we had to convert a lot between strings and ints, and this is one of the functions that I used. It's weird how it doesn't follow the same naming convention as everything else, but oh well, it's working now. So I think that should be fine, actually. This should work. If it does, I will be surprised. But actually, I'm not supposed to be doing it like this, just because I need to use the change block function. What's it called? Change single voxel. And then what does it need? So it needs a XYZ, which we have access to. Then we need the material type, so we can just literally... I guess we'll save these to different variables, so we'll have basically just some temp stuff for everything. Temp rotation, there we go. And then we will make use of each of these. And then quite simply, we can put each one in. There we go. Oh, and one thing we need to do is turn the smoothing flag to false as well. But actually, I'm going to take a quick break. I will do that, but I'll do that in just a minute. I won't be long. Hello? There we go, I'm back. Right, so passing in this all this data, but before we do that we need to turn the smoothing off so that it doesn't affect adjacent blocks, since we're just purely wanting to read in and out. So and then we can re-enable it again afterwards, I suppose. Set it to its normal state. There we go. I think that's everything. What I'll do is I'll run this through so that it saves some data quick. So, because we just want to just save the world state for now in the format that I've made. And then, once it's saved that data to the file and I've checked it and made sure that it looks like it's in the right format, we'll try reading out and we'll see if it actually loads the game state up properly. So if I minimize that, give it a compile, just double check everything. Yeah, I think that looks fine. So we'll give it a run. So once it's loaded in, we should see basically the normal stuff. There shouldn't be anything that's changed. It might take a while since it's now saving in a new format and it has the old blocks in it. And we had a crash. Right, what was it? Line 212. Oh, it might have just been a memory leak. I'll restart it. It's not the best thing you want to see, like whenever you're testing something slightly risky. I was really hoping it'd work that time as well. To be fair, I've run this code once already, so I know it's not broken. It just does this sometimes. So let's open it up, go back to entitled. So the untitled map I should probably just get rid of and do something in test level, but always insists I save it every time. Try again. If it crashes this time, I know it is an issue in my code and I need to have a look at it. So that seems to have worked. So let's double check the file. So it's about what I'd expect. It's a very long file though. I think there's only going to be a few numbers in the middle here. Yeah, so this I imagine is like rotational data, that kind of thing. Yeah, seems alright, and then this will try reading from that. So rather than doing this brush, going to head out. No worries, man. It's been nice to have you on anyway, and thanks for your help. See you next time, if you do come back, which I hope you do. Pretty sure I've got loading working now anyway. Saving works. So if we go back to compile this. It actually should be loading from the file this time, and it isn't using the brush. So if this gives us the same result as before, we know it's worked. Although it probably will take a bit longer to boot up, to be honest. Right, well, it's done something weird down here. Don't know what that's doing. Have a look. To be honest, I don't know where that's come from. I don't know why it's moved the top of the shape. That's very weird. Shifted the whole top portion to the bottom. That's really bizarre. Now, why would it have done that? That's an odd thing. That's really weird. Oh, maybe actually thinking about it, it might have more than one thing. Someone's at the door. I'm just going to have to go. Back in a second. There we go, I've returned. Someone was asking for a parcel. Right, okay. I need to investigate that bug. I don't know why it's doing that. I wonder if it will shift another line if I redo it. If it does, then I at least have a vague knowledge, like understanding of what's going on, so. Wonder if it like shifts it every run through or it just saved weirdly the first time. It's not done it again, which is really, really weird. That is the most confusing thing ever. It's just shifted the entire top section down. Let's investigate this, right? So what would it be doing? So we've saved it, right? So we've cleared it. We're opening it with a truncate flag, so that's fine. And then we're putting in shape, material, rotation, and then we're closing it again. Right, that seems fairly straightforward. And then we're doing exactly the same thing in reverse, so it shouldn't be an issue, really. Oh, that's really bizarre. Maybe my brush broke? I'm not sure actually, but like I'd say we've got quite a lot done today. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there. I do also want to apologise for not streaming on Tuesday and not being as consistent. I'm testing some different timings and I had a personal issue on Tuesday. So before I go, like what I'll do is just explain hopefully how the schedule is going to work from now on. I want the live stream to be a bit more in the evening so that people in like America, for example, have the time to come on, whether they're at work or at home or whatever, rather than starting the stream at a weird time, which I think originally would have been about 8 o'clock in the US. I know that my target demographic isn't just the US, but still, like it's a large group of people that I still kind of want to try and appeal to. My main areas of focus are obviously the UK being one of them, and Europe. So I think once the audience grows a little bit, I'll maybe think about swapping it around again and see what good results I can get from that viewership wise. But for now, I've shifted it by 2 hours later so that it's at more of a better time for everybody, I think, because most people get back from school at, 3:30 in the UK. Same with college. And also work-wise, I think either if you're working an evening shift, you'd probably want something on in the background, so it makes sense to watch my stream. Or you've just got back from work around 5-ish, 6-ish. So I want that coverage, I suppose. But anyway, thanks for watching again. I know that today's not been the most exciting thing in the world, but we have made some progress. I will try and get the origins fixed for the shapes before next stream, and then we'll work on implementing the new shape system. And hopefully some render culling as well, once I fix some other issues with refactoring and all that in my spare time, if I get time to do it tomorrow. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.